Hey, and welcome to Bronze and Modern Gods. I'm John. That's Richard.
Hi, John. How you doing today?
I am doing well. We got a lot to get to this week, as usual. Hot book of the week. We've got our 25-year rule with a little Carnage, if you like Carnage. Underrated books of the week. But our main topic this week is FOMO, fear of missing out versus long-term investments and buying. You know, we all fall for it. There's a hot book of the week. We even have a topic called Hot Book of the Week. You feel like you're missing out. You want to grab it. Is it always the smart thing to do, or should you be doing more or different things? It's not an easy answer, is it?
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
We're going to get to that in a second. But first, our Hot Book of the Week.
Don't buy the Hot Book of the Week, but here's our Hot Book pick.
I think this is a good one. Why don't you tell everybody what it is?
This week we picked Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16. This is the first appearance of Monica Rambeau as Captain Marvel. Art by John Romita. This came out in 1982. This is a book I bought brand new off the newsstand. I remember purchasing this book because I hated the cover so much. This is one of my least favorite covers for a. I'm sorry, it is. It's like, yeah, look at her. Yeah,
Wait, you bought it because you hate the cover?
No. I bought it because I was reading Spider-Man, and I had to buy it regardless of the cover. There's another Monica Rambeau cover where she's. You know, she's splayed out and arms and legs stuck out. Yeah, it's
Avengers cover. Yeah,
yes,
Avengers.
Yeah, it's they just didn't do her well, in my opinion. Yeah. But
here's the star of the book, like right there. Where's Waldo? Oh, there he is, Spider-Man.
Yeah, the heat about her. If you haven't seen the latest episode of WandaVision, I would kind of turn the volume down for a moment.
Just a second.
It was revealed in the latest version that Monica Rambeau was actually a sword agent that disappeared because of the snap and reappeared. And she is the daughter of Maria Rambeau, who was the friend of Captain Marvel in the Captain Marvel movie.
Codename in Sword, Photon. Her mom. Photon. Interesting.
Yes, and my wife and I had an argument about this. I looked it up, and definitely the whole time thing with Marvel Universe and Captain, it confused me. But anyway, she's the daughter of Maria Rambeau. She plays a pivotal role. I won't go to detail of it, but she plays a pivotal role in the clarification of the series as it stands for WandaVision. For people who've been watching it, it was basically 1950s and a 1960s and a 1970s sitcom, and there were some hints that there was something rotten under the hood, but you really never got a good grasp on it. Episode number 4 brings the series to I think ties up a bunch of things and makes things clearer, and Monica Rambeau is very responsible for that to happen.
If you were losing your patience with WandaVision, with the first 3 episodes, the memes are right. You really need to watch episode 4.
You really do. Big payoff. People had speculated that she was going to have an appearance in the show, and so the value of Amazing Spider-Man 16 annual has been going up recently. Right now, the 9.8 sold for over $1,000. And that's with a 90-day GPA of 560. So you can tell there's a lot of velocity behind this, as people were speculating that she was going to appear. Now that she's appeared, I expect the value of this book to continue to go up, as long as she's a part of the series. The census has 214 9.8, so there's not a lot of them out there. There's only 931 graded books on the census period. Be on the lookout, though. There is a Canadian price variant for this book. On the GPA the pricing, there is only one Canadian price book, Canadian price variant, and it sold for $1,250. Probably going to be a very rare book and hard book to find.
First of all, we have to talk because we're both old men. Am I reading too much into it that they named her character within the 70s WandaVision sitcom, Geraldine. Flip Wilson, Geraldine.
I thought the same thing.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no. And it's curious, given the way that she's in this, is that a name she gave herself?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Blue eyeshadow and the natural. It was like, okay, are they being funny or do they just not know because they're too young?
Yeah. I had to give it to Feige though. I mean, he took a gamble at doing the show the way he did it. 3 episodes of development without any real payoff, and waiting to the 4th episode to tie it all up.
We have mutual friends. I don't know if you saw on Facebook, some of our mutual friends that do not watch MCU movies, and they're like, I'm not a Marvel Universe person. They were upset this week with WandaVision episode 4 because they liked the first 3 and they were like, it was cute. And now it's typical Marvel stuff. And I'm like, okay, here.
You can't make everybody happy, obviously.
They're trying. It's interesting because more spoilers, please skip ahead if you haven't seen episode 4. Lots of references to cosmic rays, missing astronauts. There are some missing astronauts.
I never did think about that. Could those missing astronauts be Fantastic Four? 4 of them?
I don't know if they're doing this stuff on purpose. I like to think they are, or are we reading far too much into it? But Amazing Spider-Man Annual 16, there's a milestone there. There's a reason why they're putting her out there and making all these Easter egg references to Photon, etc. She can't be Captain Marvel because we got Brie Larson up there flying around with that name, but we'll see.
Yeah, she was the leader of the Avengers. She has provenance in the Marvel universe, regardless of her appearance in the MCU.
Yeah, since we're talking about that, that's why Roger Stern left the Avengers. I don't know if you know that story. No. Roger Stern helped create Monica Rambeau, that version of Captain Marvel. He put a lot of work into making her a competent leader of the Avengers. He showed her arc of learning and really taking command. Her police background helped. And then he was asked by Mark Grunwald, who was the editor at the time, hey, who was a big Cap guy, Cap should be leading the Avengers. I don't know why Captain Marvel's leading the Avengers. So get rid of her as, the leader and put Cap in charge. And Roger Stern dug his heels in and said, no, not going to do that. You're going to have to find someone else to do that. So they took him off the book. And poor Walt Simonson had to write this story where Dr. Druid comes in and screws with everybody's brains and makes her like to be a complete incompetent failure as a leader. They've had some work to do to repair this character. And I'm glad they are. Because
I am too. I'm interested in seeing where this goes. It's going somewhere. Does this end with her getting powers and being Photon, or does she stay, as she is now? It's going to be interesting.
It depends. I mean, how many people are being exposed to cosmic radiation right there in that sword facility? Yeah. The girl from Two Broke Girls, I don't know her name. The doctor, Two Broke Girl, she's gonna be someone. Who's she gonna be? These innocent bystanders tend to become something later on down the road.
True, exciting. So we may be seeing something that's going to develop into something important later on in the MCU.
Yep. Awesome. And Agnes is Agatha Harkness, right?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Watch it. If for some strange reason you're watching us and you're not watching WandaVision, fix that and watch WandaVision because it's worth it.
Okay, if you were skipping ahead, you can stop skipping now. We're done talking about WandaVision, and we moved on to our main topic, which has a little bit to do with our hot book of the week that we're talking about, and that's the smart way to buy and sell comics in our humble opinions. This is not gospel. This is not the Bible. We're not telling you what to do. We're telling you what we do. We're telling you what we fall prey to, and we're telling you how we're trying to correct some of this bad buying behavior that both Richard and I are guilty.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, you can start because I know you love some modern books.
Yeah, I do. I started off in the good old Bronze Age, and a lot of my tastes focus on Bronze Age, but I've been really enjoying the modern books. For Miles Morales, for example, has really just piqued my interest and excitement, and I've been pulled into that. First of all, I want to put some boundaries on things. When we talk about FOMO, or fear of missing out, I am guilty of buying the latest shiny toy that comes up. I bought this week some things that variant covers, Virgin variant covers, that I just thought I want to buy these because I know they're going to sell out, and sure enough, they do, because there's other people like me doing the same thing. Is it a wise investment? Sometimes I don't think so. I think I just do it because I know if it did end up being successful and I didn't buy it, I would be upset. So the $45 to buy it seems to be a good investment for my mental health. That's how I justify it.
I learned my lesson. When I got back really hardcore into this, it was when everything went kablooey last March. And I was still buying comics and collecting, of course, but then I started really getting into, through your influence, the modern stuff. And Thor,
yes.
Venom, blazing hot around this time last year, and I stocked up every variant cover. I'll take the 1 in 100. I'll take the 1 in 50. I'll take the 1 in 25. I'll take the 1 in 8 Googleplex. I fell for it. And now over here in this box, I got a whole bunch of Thor and Venoms if anybody wants them. We've had live sales where I put them up and they were just like crickets, and a year ago you couldn't hold them.
No, yeah, and that's the thing. The market has really changed over the last couple of years.
The last year?
Yeah. Well, variant covers and multiple prints, and I think Marvel and DC have caught on to the fact that if they manufacture some kind of event, in this case, we had Codex and we had Virus, and we create these things and we make it attractive. We could sell not only that book, but we could sell variant covers of that book. And not only can we sell variant covers, we could still sell store variants. We can have other people selling them. And not only that, these suckers will buy multiple prints of this book. So we can have a second print and a third print and a fourth print and a fifth print. So we have these events, in my opinion, that are manufactured by the publisher. And people have just latched onto these things in a way I can't remember them doing previously. And that's how we get, I've got 15, 20 copies of various Thor number 6s and 15, 20 copies of Venom number 25s. And it's because you get caught up into that whole environment. Comic book collecting is a social thing. Mm-hmm. We do it as a part of a collective. And it's the world that you and I have been in is Instagram and YouTube and the various forums, or live and breathe in this whole FOMO thing. And I know I got sucked into this. I was waiting and up at late at night to buy different copies of books when they come out. Or it's just crazy. And the end result is when something pops that bubble. Donny Cates announced that Venom is,
he's done with issue 200. He's done.
Right. He's done. And so what does that mean for us, the series? We saw that Virus and Codex were actually previously existing characters. So their first appearances weren't really worth what people thought they were going to be worth. And so those books tanked. So that's the problem with being caught up in the FOC cycle, where you're buying books on pure speculation. Speculation is great. It fuels creativity and thought and attacking problems different ways and buying things different ways. But when there's nothing fueling your speculation other than FOMO, you can spend a lot of money on things that do not have the value that you thought they would when you were, pressing that buy button on that Shopify site.
I'm not calling anyone specific out, but we have a great example this week. Mystic number, whatever it is, 14.
Right.
Supposedly this hot book because there's a character inside that sort of looks like Harry Potter. It's actually the kid from Books of Magic, if you actually look and read, which was a Harry Potter rip anyway, or vice versa. Why are people buying this book? It's a cross-gen book that's been in $1.50 bins for the last 10, 15 years. They're buying it because they're being told.
Yes.
It's hot. Go buy this. This is hot. If you really do some research, like someone on Instagram I saw, you'll find that Ninja High School Annual is actually the first appearance of Harry Potter in a comic book. He's even on the cover. So not even this mystic book is what it says it is. And people are supposedly going nuts over this.
Yeah, that brings up another topic I want to talk about, and that's these top 10 lists. I can attest. I wait on a weekly basis for a variety of different sources for their top 10 lists, and you see number 1, number 2, number 3, what have you. And my opinion is, if you see a book on that top 10 list, it's not saying buy that book. It's saying
it's too late.
It's too late. You should have bought that book 3 months ago, is what it's telling you. Don't use those top 10 lists as investment guides. Use them as a rule of thumb to try to help you figure out what in 3 months are going to be on that top 10 list.
It's like me telling you to go buy GameStop right now.
It's a great example. It's awesome.
GameStop stock is hot, or stonk is hot right now. Go buy those stonks. By the way, true story. I should take a picture and put it up here. Went by the GameStop by the grocery store today with a guy out front with a sign, going out of business, 50% sale, fixtures for sale. So if you think GameStop is a good investment, let me send you this picture.
That's an excellent example. The people who make these lists are they don't have a crystal ball. They're using sales numbers to generate these lists. So there's
sales number. Here's what drives me nuts at work. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Here's what drives me nuts about this. And this happens to me at work too. And I have to call people out. We've seen a 300% increase in copies sold this week. What does that mean? That potentially means 1 copy sold last week, and this week 3 copies sold.
Right.
Guess what that is? A 300% increase. Give us the real numbers, like, 567 copies sold this week versus 25 last week. That means something. A 1,000% increase over last week means what?
It means, yeah, you're right. Without context, those percentages are useless. They're misleading, in my opinion, in a lot of ways. You see something is up by 1,000%, you think, oh my goodness, that's a lot. I need to buy into that because there's obviously people interested in that book. Now, I'm not saying discount these top 10 lists. They are useful. They're
entertaining. They're definitely entertaining.
They are definitely entertaining. But I'm saying that they shouldn't be a guide for. You shouldn't take that top 10 list and then immediately go over to eBay and start buying up those books. It's not typically the best thing you can do. Now, it depends. Now, some books are so hot that even though, I'm going to use some Star Wars examples, Clone Wars is a hot book, regardless, whether it's on the list or not. And, they may be saying that it's number 1 on their list. And so you go out and you find a book that is, under guide, let's say, and you buy it, there's a chance, and there's probably a good chance that book is going to go up in value the following week. They're kind of like guideposts, if you could use it that way. But you've got to invest the time and effort to make sure that your purchases have room to grow.
Do you think Kang is going to be an important character in 10 years?
Right. Very good point. Do you think Punchline is going to be an important character in 10 years?
I would put more money on Punchline than Kang. I mean, how exciting is Kang as a villain? Right. He goes through time and manipulates stuff. Okay, what about Immortus? Same guy.
Right. It's like, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's these. That's another rule. You typically don't spec on villains, because villains are meant to be defeated and they are cyclical. So they'll be defeated and not show up again for another 5 years.
3 villains you can spec on and feel comfortable with yourself: Thanos, Doctor Doom, and Darkseid. That's pretty much it.
I see Doctor Doom. That's a whole other conversation, because Doctor Doom, Namor, I put them in the category of anti-hero as opposed to villain.
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean. But yeah.
You have a good point. Buy what you like. I mean, you guys hear it all the time, and we preach it. Sometimes we don't practice it, but I'll give you a great example of buying what you like, paying off long term. back in
back when they used letters instead of numbers to tell the date.
I had a 1,000% increase. No, back in 1989, I bought a near mint plus run of Night Nurse. There's chef's kiss. These books are pristine, and I paid $5 a piece for them. And no one wants Night Nurse back then. I bought a run of Strange Tales with Brother Voodoo because I loved it. I thought it was goofy. I thought it was great. And I have that Jericho drum run. And who knows what happens? Here we are 30 years later. And Night Nurse is $1,000 book in 9.8. The first appearance of Brother Voodoo is $1,000 book. And I got them sitting right here because I bought them because I liked them and I kept them.
Right. And we're not saying you got to wait 30 years to realize a profit.
You might have to.
but there's definitely, when you're buying books, we've talked about the short-term aspect, right? So you're buying books on FOC, books that are brand new. Some of these stupid things go for $15 when they're, on launch release day, which is insane. But that's one way. If you are up to date and you can keep up with that pace, that you can flip those books, more power to you. But you're not going to be making what I consider to be a sufficient amount unless you do it in volume. You buy a book for $4, you sell it for $15, you made $10 on the sale, right? Roughly. But you got to sell 10 of those to make $100. It's, to me, the economy of scale isn't there. Well, if you took that money and bought a longer term investment, like John's talking about a Night Nurse, or like I back in 3 years ago, I bought some Ultimate Fallout 4s. You never know. If you make your investments wisely, those long-term investments can pay off greater dividends than that short-term investment. Now you're going to have your money tied up, but again, if you listen to John and you buy what you like anyway, it's not a hardship to have a Fantastic Four #5 or have an X-Men #1. You enjoy that book while it's actually accruing value over time. So use your money wisely.
And look at history. I mean, these MCU books where every minor character becomes a huge spec book. I didn't see Patsy Walker back issues go through the roof when Patsy appeared in I almost did Alias. What's the name of the show? Jessica Jones. Right. Howard the Duck. He was in Guardians. He was in Endgame, a little cameo. How come his first issue is still a sub $500 book? Ronan the Accuser. Is that going to be a big spec book 10 years from now because he was in Guardians? Not really.
Again, villain.
Yeah. Patsy's not a villain. Patsy's cool.
No. The market picks. Not only does the market pick who they like, they pick where they like. I think the whole Hulk 180, 181 cameo versus first appearance. Wolverine shows up in a panel in 180. Here he is. Not like, in shadow or anything like that. It's Wolverine right there. And yet that's considered his cameo. 181 is the first appearance. Now that isn't, and even Marvel says that 180 is the first appearance. But the market, the collectors have determined collectively that 181 is the book to buy. And then that's what people put their money into. So
Jimmy Olsen, that issue of Jimmy Olsen with Darkseid on a TV screen in the last.
God, that is so terrible.
Colored wrong. Is that the first appearance of Darkseid, or is it Forever People #1? I'm going to go with Forever People #1.
Yeah, but again, it's the market. It depends. I recently was specking on first appearance of Ahsoka Tano, and there are like 4 different books that have claim on her first appearance. You've got Darth Vader 14. You've got Mace Windu #5. I spec'd on the Age of Republic special edition, and then there's another book I can't remember off the top of my head. And each one of these books has an Ahsoka-like image. I mean, there's a a panel that has somebody that looks like Ahsoka Tano in it in some of these books. To me, the best one was your Age of Republic, but the market just decided on Mace Windu #5. That's what they've picked, and so that's where people's spec money goes, and that's where the value has been generated. And it is the way the market works.
I got those titles memorized in my head. I'm not running around. I'm not running around buying them. But if I'm walking through an LCS and I'm flipping through a box and I happen to see one that's like priced for $6, yeah, I'm gonna grab it, squish it, sell it, and then go buy another copy of Patsy Walker Annual #2.
You should. You can't have enough copies of Patsy Walker Annual.
Right? I should show it. I have a Canadian edition too.
There you go.
All right, it's Patsy Walker's Fashion Parade. Get it right. So what I'm worried about is we have all these new great collectors in the hobby. We welcome them. We want them to stay around. If you're trying so hard to grab and flip, you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out real quick. Unless you enjoy the process. If you truly enjoy it and you feel like you're playing the stonks, great. But if you're feeling like I'm throwing my hands up, I'm burnt on the variant covers and the ratios. I am burnt out. So guess what? I'm stopping. I'm done.
Definitely. It's easy to burn out if you approach it, especially if you're buying the flip. For example, you buy a book and you don't have time to send it away to be graded. That's a problem we're having right now, where our grading companies are taking forever to return a book. And by the time you send it out to be graded and it comes back, the heat behind that book may be gone. And so you have this really tight timeline you need that you have people's attention. So you buy a book, you press it, you sell it raw, because if you try to sell it graded, you may not get to sell that book. If for example, those Thor #6s or
Miles Morales Spider-Man #18, the 1 per store Marvel birthday variant. I bought those at I sent them to get slabbed. They both came back 9.8s 2.5 months later, and I sold them for less than what I paid for them.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, when you buy books to flip, you have to sell them quickly. You can't let them sit in your short box for an extended period of time.
If I had sold them raw, I would have doubled my money.
But even doubling your money, again, my point is in those to make money flipping, you either need to specialize in certain books that have a high return, or you need to do a lot of books.
Yeah.
And if you're doing a lot of books, you can burn out very, very quickly. And if you're specializing, you're buying high ratios, for example, or that beautiful Rameau Ultimate Fallout foil that just came out recently, where you could buy it if you have connections in Mexico. You could buy it for $8 because it's only sold in Mexico, and it's going. Yeah. And it's going for over $100 here locally. So, but I don't know how long it's going to be that way. It could very easily, people lose interest and that book could drop to, half that. So
just because something's a high ratio too, doesn't mean people want it. Anybody raising their hand for a 1 in 50 or 1 in 100 Shang-Chi?
Yeah, right. Well, you found those, 1 in 1,000,
Spider-Man 300, 1 in 1,000 in a Walmart pack.
Right.
So, that's another thing. These ratios are getting left over at the warehouse, and now they're getting randomly salted in these Walmart 3-packs. So I'm sure we're going to see some price corrections here. But I think to sum up, just don't burn yourself out. Buy what you truly enjoy. It's easy.
That's really this has been a long rambling conversation, but I think that's the real at the heart of it. It's your money. At the end of the day, when the lights you're turning the lights off in your comic book area, make sure that what you have there on the wall or in the long box or short box is stuff you like. No one is guaranteeing that they're going to buy what you have in your inventory. So if in the long run you end up getting stuck with a particular book, make sure it's a book that you don't mind being stuck with. And also, some books don't give up on it. That's the last thing I'm going to say. just because it doesn't sell today doesn't mean that it might not sell in a year or 2 years. For example, these Venoms, I'm not necessarily giving up on them yet. We still have the trailer for the Venom movie and the Venom movie release. So, there's going to be some heightened interest in Venom, the Venom property. And at that point, it may be an opportunity to sell those books. But in the long term, don't burn yourself out, like John says. Stay interested in the hobby and keep your purchases to a scale that you can sustain.
And don't get me wrong, I have nothing wrong with finding a Mystic number 14 or 2 in a dollar bin, buying it and flipping that and using that money to buy something I really want.
Oh yeah.
Do that all day long. Just don't do it, because you feel that you have to have this strange book because someone told you to.
Don't quit your job. Don't spend your rent money on books that you think you're going to flip.
One thing I always do, and it's paid off in the long term, is I always look for books during really low print run times, like the mid 90s, the early 2000s. And if I see something really good, I snag that and I get it slabbed in because they just don't exist in any kind of scale in high grade. And the next example of what this process is right now in the 25-year rule. All right. Back in 1996, the 25-year rule is when we talk about when nostalgia kicks in and people start buying books from their youth, I wouldn't say childhood, their younger years. And 1996 is interesting. We've talked about it many times, how Marvel was really near to bankruptcy. Print runs were super low. They were being very, very brutal with canceling books that were under a certain threshold. First, it was 40,000, and then they reduced it to 20,000. It's crazy. But one of those books that kind of snuck out during this year, which was a book called Carnage Mind Bomb. And this is a book that about 4 or 5 years ago, I started seeing on walls of shows for like $10. And I just started saying, I like that. I've never seen that book. It's got a really cool red foil cover. There's Carnage on the front of it. Why isn't this more than $10? I will take that, please. And now we're at the point where this one shot by Warren Ellis and Kyle Hotz is a $180 book in 9.8. It seems to be a little up and down, but 160, 180 is about what this book sells for. This was the first solo Carnage title. And if he appears in the next Spideyverse related movie, which everybody's saying is, you might see this book shoot up again because despite being approved by the Comic Code, it's a gory story. You've got a guy eating intestines in a hot dog bun. That really happens in the book. I won't go. How did this get past the Comics Code as well? I don't think that really did. I think they just kind of slapped it on the cover and, oh yeah, we forgot to submit this. Carnage Mind Bomb is one of those books that I just, from that era, that every time I see it, I buy it. Now, I'm not going to have that luck now, but it, again, long-term spec pays off.
Yeah. Did you pick this as one of your underrated books earlier on?
I sure did. I think I was like our second or third episode. I picked Carnage Bomb before it blew up, and since then it's kind of blown up. So let me break my hand, patting myself here.
No, you deserve that. No, that's there are a number of books in that era that are Carnage related, and I think if he does show up in any MCU property, it's just going to be that Mind Bomb book is going to be a hit.
I think we can add Venom and Carnage to our villain spec list where it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and there are lots of Carnage books that are really kind of underrated. I don't know the issue numbers off the top of my head, but the Amazing Spider-Man issues where Carnage possesses the Silver Surfer, those sell for way above guide. I know that's such an outdated term. It sells above guide, but it does. Just people see that cover and they're like, whoa, he possessed the Silver Surfer. Cool. So those 96 to about 2002 books, grab them if you see them. They're good stuff. All right, we're going to move on to our underrated books of the week. Richard, why don't you go first? I love your pick.
I'm an 80s kid, and I started collecting comics in early 80s, late in our 1979. I can't remember. Back then, indie titles had a real interesting position in comics. They introduced topics that the major publishers, Marvel, DC at the time, weren't interested in. And one of my favorite books from back then is a book called, or a character called Grendel. Grendel #1 came out in 1983. It's a Matt Wagner book, and it's all about Hunter Rose as Grendel. He was an assassin. He was a ruler of the underworld, and he was ruthless and intelligent. And he had the stories that revolved around Hunter were of a different caliber than what I was seeing in Claremont's work at the time, or you were seeing in George Perez. It was really, really interesting, and it pulled me in. Grendel #1 is actually his second appearance. His first appearance is in Primer #2. He had a cameo in Primer #1, which are early Comico books. Matt Wagner is also famous for doing the Mage run. As a matter of fact, he once the Comico run was done, he included stories for Grendel in Mage issue number 6 through 14. Again, the character is really interesting, and if you grew up in that period, you're familiar with Grendel. It has some interest in terms of the GPA right now. There hasn't been any sales for 9.8 since 2016. That's how, I don't want to say scarce this book is, about how much people haven't graded it. There's a 9.6 out there it's graded at $375. The census, there are 12 9.8s out there on the census out of 345. It's just have not come up for sale. So if you come across something that's a 9.8 contender, that definitely is something that I would pick up, given its scarcity. Later on in Grendel became not necessarily associated with Hunter Rose, but became kind of a moniker that was picked up by a number of characters. And to me, they always introduced chaos into a situation. They were the word ended up meaning later on devil. And I think that's an accurate sense of the kind of characters that took up the Grendel name. It was also picked up by Comico. Comico ran the series from 1986 to 1990. Definitely is worth a read. If you come across the second appearance, it's, as you can see, it has a following, but there hasn't been a lot of sales of the book. So to me, it's something that's nice. It's a nice pickup if you're either looking to sell it, or if you're like me and have a lot of nostalgia and want to go back and read it. It's definitely something that I am personally on the look for.
The first 2 or 3 arcs of the ongoing series from 86, that first arc drawn by the Pander brothers is amazing. Then Benny Moreau does an arc. It's really good stuff. It's excellent. And I used to have this Comico slip book. It was like a black slip case that came stuffed with a bunch of Comico books. And one of the books, it came with an exclusive Mage, like 8-page comic in there. And I got that slipcase and the exclusive 8-pager signed by Matt Wagner at Mid-OhioCon back in the 80s. And I carried that thing with me when I was in the Army. I moved it from house to house, and I don't know where it's at now. I wish I could find it. It's got to be somewhere here.
Oh, that's terrible. Why'd you tell me that?
I know. No. It's cruel.
Well, definitely. Yeah. Grendel to me is up there with Mage, is up there with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Cerebus, all of these, to me, important pivotal characters in the indie movement that spawned just a new way of thinking about comic books that Marvel and DC later picked up.
Yeah, I did get a couple messages in the last week of people saying they picked up American Flag based on our recommendation. We also recommend Grendel. If you see it, grab it. It's a great read. All right, my book this week is a little more mainstream. It is Tales to Astonish number 57. This is one of the earliest Spider-Man crossovers. It came out in July 1964, cover date. It was published the same month as Amazing Spider-Man 14, the first appearance of the Green Goblin. And at that point, Spider-Man had been around for over a year. It went monthly with issue 5, so it was pretty much a success right out of the gate. This is what I think is a rare example of, instead of an established character having a new character guest star to get awareness and get people to buy that book, I think this was a case of Spider-Man being used to prop up Giant Man a bit, because Giant Man was and Ant-Man was one of those early failures from the early Marvel universe that people, kind of look back and go, "Ooh, yeah," because if you think about it, Ant-Man was one of the architects of the early Marvel universe, one of the earliest Marvel heroes. He didn't last more than 3 or 4 years. Human Torch and Strange Tales, his solo series, is another one that petered out after less than 3 years. So this was probably an attempt to get people to check out Giant Man and the Wasp. Hey, Spider-Man's in it. The cover is crazy. It's got this Jack Kirby, God bless him, my favorite artist of all time. He could not draw Spider-Man to save his life. He could not do it. So you've got this funky cover. You've got Dick Ayer's art inside, where Spidey looks possibly even worse than he does on the cover. But it is an early Spider-Man book. It's an early Spider-Man key, along with like Strange Tales Annual #2 that guest starred Spider-Man early. This book has, for mid-grade, a 5.5, a 6.0 GPA. It's only around $150. This book's a steal. I grab it whenever I see it, because I just think it's one of those books that people are a light's going to come on. They're going to go, whoa, this is like in the first 2 years of Spidey's existence.
Yeah, that's interesting that Spidey at that early period was strong enough to buoy up these other titles. That speaks a lot about the popularity of Spidey so quickly.
Fantastic Four didn't go monthly till about issue 9 or 10. So for Spidey to go monthly, less than a year into his solo title, tells me he really rung a bell with people, and they were captured in his web.
Oh, wow. Excellent. I'm going to keep an eye on this. I know you have a standing order on certain Tales to Astonish issues. So, this is definitely something that I'm going to take a look at.
I do love those Ant-Man books. The Kirby covers with the really forced perspective, and they're crazy. There's one where Ant-Man's barely on the cover. He's like a little speck, and there's this huge matchbook, and he's like, "I'm trapped, nowhere to turn." And it's like, okay, I can see why he didn't take off. I mean, he's got the powers of a normal man. The size. So there you go. All right. That's going to do it for us this week. Thanks, everybody. If you're not following us on Facebook and Instagram, do it right there. Bronze and Modern Gods. Give us a like, subscribe, leave us some viewer comments, leave us some mail, DM us on Instagram. We love hearing from you guys.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks everyone for your attention, and everyone stay safe.